What's up, everybody? Frank Valkyria. Welcome to the channel. I see something going like, hypnotizing us. Today I'm here with him. Yes, you know.
He's hypnotizing me.
Yes, hypnotize. If you know his name, don't speak it aloud. Write it in the comment section. Huh? Let me know if you know. And let's go. This was a suggestion from Lori to do something different. And I hope that this something different works because he's hypnotizing us. Geography now, Brazil. All right.
All right.
Well, let's hope this video stays up from Geography Now. We're just doing a commentary. Please don't claim the video. Thank you. Let's go.
Hey Geography peeps, so Brazil is one of the largest countries in the world. Obviously, I won't be able to cover everything within about...
We speak English. We understand. No subtitles. I thought it was Portuguese. Let's go.
10 minutes. I'll try to do my best, but in the meantime, soccer, monkeys, Amazon, Ronaldo, and samba songs, capoeira, anacondas, carnival, and attractive people that kind of have like tan skin. Oh, come on.
That was actually not bad, huh? That was almost a rap flow. For that.
It was a nice...
Yeah.
Come on, guys, you knew that was coming.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. I guess that's a thing now. And after weeks of anticipation, we finally finished the Brazil video. And you know how we start these things. Let's dissect the flag. The flag of Brazil has a green field with a yellow rhombus in the middle and a blue disc in the center with 27 stars scattered throughout the disc and the country's motto depicted on a white...
Thank you. I never knew that there were 27 stars in it. Thanks.
Me neither.
band sprawled across the blue disc.
Ordine
Some people might tell you that the
progresso.
green represents forests and yellow represents gold, but yeah, that's not really true. The green and yellow are actually inspired from the former imperial flag of Brazil, which was derived from two royal households, the green representing the House of Braganza for King Dom Pedro I, and the yellow for the House of Habsburg that his wife Maria Leopoldina came from. The blue disc and the stars are what make up the most fun part of this flag. Each star represents one of the 27 states of Brazil. Furthermore, they are all separated into 9 different constellations that you can typically see in the southern hemisphere. Straddling across the blue disc is a banner with the country's motto, Ordem e Progresso, which means order and progress. A flag with stars representing each state in the country. Ah, Brazil, I think there's some people that can gel well with that. Now here's where things get a little fun, because each section of Brazil kind of has its own little story. But first, Brazil is the largest country in the South American continent. If you grew up in Latin America, you would have been told that both South and North America are together one continent, but for pragmatic definitional reasons, we're just going to treat South America as a separate entity, as its own continent. Brazil's domain stretches all the way from the Atlantic coast and deep into the interior of the continent. Brazil is bordered by every single South American country except for Ecuador and Chile. You could also technically say that Brazil borders France. Why? Because of this little guy. French Guiana. That's right, this is not a country, but rather an overseas territory of France. It's okay, raise your hand if you just learned that. You're learning. The country's capital is the...
We knew it.
We
knew it.
knew that.
There's also some still Dutch, well, they're not colonies anymore, but overseen territory here.
properties.
Yeah, Aruba and Suriname.
Suriname.
Yeah, well, not anymore. I guess Suriname is independent, right?
Yeah, I think so.
named Brasilia, located slightly inland in the central west region of Brazil, and actually administers itself in its own federal district, much like Washington, D.C. Brasilia was actually built in 1960 as they were switching from the old capital, Rio de Janeiro. That's right, it's pronounced Rio de Janeiro, not Rio de Janeiro. Get it right, we're not in Mexico, this is Portuguese, not Spanish. This was done in an attempt to provide...
Rio de Janeiro. Is it true, guys?
Okay.
Because I know the D sounds, but I also know that the D is not always pronounced with the G. Depends where it's placed inside the sentence of the word. So it's nice Brasilia because it's an older city that was looking towards the future in terms of design, you know, like, so as that kind of like retro 70s futuristic design, which is pretty cool actually.
and more regional neutrality for the rest of the states in Brazil by centralizing the capital. Brazil is divided into 27 federative units, 26 of which are states and 1 federal district, which is where the capital resides. Each state and region of Brazil has their own unique flavor that they bring to the table, and we'll discuss more about that in the demographics, but essentially it kind of goes like this. We grow food. We got all the money. We are so black. We are so white. Stop cutting our trees. In terms of disputes, Brazil has 2 disputed areas with Bolivia on the Mamore River and 2 disputed areas with Uruguay on the Uruguay River and in the Masoyer Rivera that nobody cares about. Funny backstory, Uruguay...
It's like a backyard ground. People are bickering about. Probably they cannot even grow anything on top of it. Stop it. Stop it. Just eat cookies. Or at least exchange tropical fruits, which are also very nice, full of nutrients.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Huh?
Business.
Business. Also, what kind of fruits are there? I want some.
actually used to be part of Brazil, known as the Cisplatina province, yada yada yada. There was a war, they gained their independence. Brazil has a ton of islands off their coast, but the furthest reaches of the Brazilian domain would have to be the 4 island and archipelago chains in the Atlantic: Fernando de Noronha, the Rocas Atoll, the St. Peter and St. Paul Rocks, which is a non-permanent residence science lab station, and Trindade and Martin Vaz. Otherwise, the western mainland borders look kind of funny. If you look at the map, it kind of looks like Brazil has river Tourette syndrome.
Like the avant-post of birds before they hit landfall, you know, before they get on land. So you get a lot of seagulls and a lot of droppings from seagulls. I actually didn't even know there was the island out there.
In which they have a lot of half rivers, but then they jump onto the next adjacent river, which is like a couple hundred kilometers away. It's like, I'll take part of the Rio Acre, but then, I'll cut through and make my way over to the Rio Puros. I'll take the Rio Santa Rosa, but then, I'll jump over to Rio Breu. This all had to do with centuries of disputes with the former empires, and today you have this massive piece of sovereign complexity. And that's just the borders. Wait till you see what's inside the borders. When you think of Brazil, everybody just kind of automatically defaults to one image: the Amazon. And yes, the Amazon is a very imperative factor to the nation's domain. However, there's a lot more to it in terms of landscape and terrain. First of all, about 60% of the entire Amazon rainforest is located in Brazil, mostly in the north region, and of course, no surprise, consists of the most heavily compact ecoregion on Earth. Out of all the 10 million species of animals and insects known to human beings, about half of them call the Amazon rainforest home. Many of the species that have yet to be discovered are still lingering about in the deep, uncharted depths of the Amazon today. Now, we all know that there's a huge deforestation problem going on in Brazil in the Amazon to provide more agricultural land. However, even Brazil's own citizens are harshly criticizing the action. It's a little tricky though, because with Brazil's rapidly growing population, more resources are demanded of the people. So it's kind of like, we get it, it's bad, but I mean, what do you want us to do? Our country is growing and we need to provide you people with more stuff. Use alternative methods! Like what? We're working on it! Otherwise, outside of the Amazon, the rest of the country has a vast array of contrasting scenery almost equally as fascinating. Along the coast, you have the Mata...
problem with everything else around the globe. I mean, I know nobody wants to hear this. You just gotta eat also less meat, you know? I'm not even telling you to go vegetarian. You gotta eat less meat. The majority of agricultural land is used around the world to feed cattle. You know, like literally to grow soy, to feed the cows that you need to eat everywhere in the American market, which is probably the largest. Brazilian are also very famous for their meat, like Argentina. There's a lot of pasture.
South America.
You know, there's a lot of a meat culture there. But obviously, you got to feed the animals, and on an industrial scale of that size, of obviously a lot of land, it's used for that. The same way, like you go in Indonesia and other places where most of the ground it's used for palm, to create palm oil, you know, just because palm oil is cheap to put in almost anything in the industrialized world. So there is so much actually you can do. We as humans, we need so much less land if you want to do crops which they're used for us and not for the billions and billions of cattle that we slaughter every time. Like, you don't have to go full vegan or vegetarian, but lowering the amount of intake, it will free much more space in terms of, you know, like agriculture, so that you don't have to abuse your ground. It's actually very basic. This is science. You learned something today too.
But I think even if we go low with the eating meats, all the big companies they will always grow up animals and slaughter.
Yeah, it's
animals.
about greed. It's about always. In the end of the day, it's always greed.
You know, I mean, even if they have to throw away like 200 billions or kilo of meats, they will do it anyway.
It's greed.
But our part, I mean, our important part is to lower the meat.
Yeah, we can do so much, man. We really can do so much. But anyway, let's continue. Otherwise, we get.
No, just one thing, because if you see it from the satellite,
Yeah,
it's really
It's drying
shock.
up, you mean? Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, there is also a lot of scientific evidence that we have not even 10 years left before the temperature rises a degree and a half. And this is science that is available. It's not just, conspiracy theories. It's just facts. And we got to do something. Otherwise, we're gonna get a zombie apocalypse. Not only human, also mad cows.
Yeah, but we already have a flight booked to Mars, and when we
Like, where is the Galactic Federation? Where are you? Where
Atlantica, or
are
the Atlantic
you?
forest, the Cerrado, or the tropical savannas in the center. This is also the area where most farms and ranches can be found. Also, keep in mind, Brazil is one of the top countries in meat production and exports. In the south, you have the Araucaria, or the pine evergreen forests. In the north, you have the small mountains, especially close to the border of Venezuela, in which you can find one of the most notable natural landmarks being the tri-point border between Venezuela, Guyana, and Brazil, Mount Roraima, even though Brazil only owns about 5% of the mountain. But still, it
Beautiful, that mountain. They're like really like special. That one I gotta check on Google. I think I've seen it in picture just randomly. I didn't know it was there. Beautiful plateau.
counts. Roraima is one of the strangest looking
Beautiful,
flat-top plateau mountains with vertical cliffs almost perpendicular to the ground, earning it the label as one of the hardest mountains to climb. Fun side note, Mount Roraima was one of the areas that inspired the scenery for the Pixar movie Up, which is a great movie. By the way, go ahead, watch it. And with that said, Pixar and Disney, you can't sue me for copyright infringement rights for using a clip of your movie in my corner box here, because in accordance with fair use limitation rights,
That's exactly what we told to you that we're doing this reacting to you reacting to Disney movies. Huh? It's a chain. It's a loop. It's those strange 7D mirror that you see yourself projected in forever and ever until the distortion takes a curve and your mind is blown because you were under the effect. Let's face it. That's why you were watching the mirror in the first place. Okay?
I commented and gave a critique on your material. Just letting you know, you can't sue me. One of the most remarkably bizarre and unusual spots of the country, though, would have to be the famous flooded deserts of Lençóis Maranhães.
that's
This place,
really
located
amazing.
on the north coast of the Maranhão state, is almost alien-like, as there are virtually no places like it on Earth. Essentially, it's a sand dune desert with abundant lagoons speckled throughout the entire region. Although it gets a lot of rainfall yearly, the area supports little vegetation and wildlife. Nonetheless, the area draws in thousands of tourists yearly, as it contains the almost paradoxical juxtaposition of elements in its scenery. It's not every day that you see a flooded desert. All right, let's talk about the Brazilian people. Biscoito, bolacha, biscoito, bolacha. Yeah, we'll explain.
I
what that-
don't care. Give them to me right now. I want both of those, okay?
means
Whatever you
but first,
call it.
Now, of course, Brazil is incredibly diverse, but before we get into that little pie graph thingamajiglet that we always do here in the demographics section, I feel like it's very crucial to mention one important thing about Brazil's people. Now, everybody knows that one of the most dramatically unique traits of Brazil would have to be its people. When asked, what do you think a Brazilian looks like? The stereotype is somebody with a perfectly bronzed, toned body and with slight Germanic features. One reason why this stereotype has been perpetuated so extensively is because, in a strange way, it's kind of true. Over the course of a few hundred years since colonization, Brazil's population has actually virtually invented an entirely new race that never exactly existed before.
Dude, there are no freaking races. Oh my god, I always get so triggered when I hear races. There is no races on the freaking planet. We are Homo sapiens sapiens. We all come from black Africans, you know, like somewhere like 500,000 years ago. And we just evolved a little bit to get little featured. Yes, there is little differences in DNA, of course, that expresses itself.
Or how you look like, but
Yes, exactly. And of course, you can call me out if I'm wrong, but I don't think so because science. But again, that said, we are Homo sapiens sapiens. We are one thing. Beautiful iteration of beautiful like changes in skin and tone and this and that and featured. Yes. But we are Homo sapiens sapiens, and also, before he goes on, I think this is the future. This will be the future. Brazil is a clear sign of what actually Homo sapiens sapiens will develop into. You know, you see this beautiful mixture of the African genes. You know, like the iteration of the African features, so to speak. Even though there are more differences within the continent of Africa amongst people of a darker skin. You know, like in the like, there's more variation there than in the rest of the world, and people don't talk about that. That's kind of funny. Again, science, but the mingling, and this is also something that I'm gonna quote from the great Lemmy, from Lemmy Kilmister from Motherhead, and he said it well once in the past. He said, we gotta screw each other. The more we screw each other, the more we mix, the more we get nice results. Huh? Like these beautiful green eyes with darker skin and all kinds of beautiful, beautiful mingling. That's exactly what we have to do.
Yeah, but that's the best quote ever from.
Lemmy knew. Not only fucking rock legend, he knew. Let's screw each other for real.
I mean, it's a way that we are all one. You know, I mean, you don't have any more Brazil or I don't know, Japan or Italy or whatever.
Let's screw
each other.
Yes.
As much as possible.
Exactly. Brazil, we are coming.
And it makes up nearly half of the entire population. I'm talking about the Pardo people. Now, although the definition is vague and up for relative dispute, essentially this is the easiest way I can describe it. Pardo people are kind of like people that are either too white to be black or too black to be white, and there's probably a little bit of Amerindian in there. That being said, now let's jump into the pie graph. Brazil has about 202 million people, making it the 5th most populous country in the world, right behind Indonesia. About 47% of the people identify as white, about 43% identify as Pardo, about 8% are black, 1.5 Asian, and a very small portion, about 0.5% of the population, are Amerindian. Speaking of Asians, at about 1.5 million strong, Brazil is actually the country with the largest Japanese population outside of Japan. About 70% of whom live in the city of Sao Paulo. Asians have actually historically been migrating to Brazil for centuries. In terms of socio-regional distinctions, Brazil has quite the buffet of ethnic enclaves. For one, you can typically find more black people in the north, and especially in the Bahia state, where they make up over half of the entire population. This is also the area where you can disputably find some of the best capoeira masters in the world, as it is believed to have originated in this area. In the south, and more specifically in the Rio Grande do Sul state, you have one of the largest white populations in the entire country, with immigrants coming from places like Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands. In fact, many of these places have remained relatively untouched by the rest of Brazil, and many of the communities still retain the mother language of the country the members of the community came from. Oh, and there's a joke in Brazil that nobody has met anybody from the state of Acre. It's so far and secluded that you may as well just call it North Bolivia. It's mine, Brazil! Nope, too bad, we won it in the war, it's still ours, deal with it. Then of course you have the various native tribal groups. There are about 240 tribes that a little over 900,000 people claim to be a part of ethnically. The government has recognized 690 territories and reservations for these various people groups that make...
So hard, like when you think about it, those people were there, like, you know, for generations and generations and generations before the freaking Spanish and the Dutch and whatever started to conquer and just also import slaves, unfortunately, from Africa, populating those regions, and all those people were just there. And nowadays it's like a little bit like the Native American in the US. You know, they're just putting reservations. It makes no sense, you know, like
but even look, even the statistics that they make, the 47% is white, the 33 is black, the other is Chinese.
Oh man, I really look, I don't know how many times I'm gonna say this. I know that we have to somehow we love labels.
We are getting better in that way, but we are still so far.
But I can't wait for the days we stop calling each other colors and stuff. Like I just can't wait for that day where we have to refer to each other. You white, you're yellow, you black. We are people. Can we just be human?
It's still go too far.
Oh man, like it's just so tiring sometimes. I was like, we are freaking humans. Let's deal with it. Let's move on.
Make up about 13% of the entire country's landmass, nearly all of it localized in the Amazon rainforest. Brazil's governmental agency for tribal peoples has a list of about 80 uncontacted tribal groups that deliberately choose to remain disconnected from the rest of the world. The governmental agency speculates that there are still many unnamed, undiscovered tribes currently living in the vast uncharted forests of the Amazon.
There was a footage, I don't know if it was from National Geographic. There are those tribes which they apparently have no contact with the outside world, and they're still living in a manner that probably is similar to, let's say, prehistoric men, you know, of Europe, of like 40,000 years ago or so. And in a way, it's astonishing that it's still possible You know what I mean? It's astonishing that
Yeah.
that,
That no one goes there and
but also because we forget cities are very populated, but we have still a lot of land that it's empty. You know, it's empty. Nobody goes there. Like the whole like of Amazon, it's huge. That area is just
but
enormous.
world.
You know.
even Italy, it's so populated, but you have like places that
So probably
They are reachable.
there are like entire areas that they are bigger than the Netherlands or Italy
Yeah.
itself. You know, there is totally nobody goes there, and there are those tribes. So it's not that difficult to be isolated. But then also if you go in Canada, like Canada, most of it is empty. You know, like Alaska, or if you go like
to
in
Alaska.
Russia. You know, most of because it's cold, but most of Russia basically it's empty.
Yeah.
There's nobody.
Culture-wise, it really depends on where you are in Brazil, but everybody knows that Brazil kind of has a very vibrant way that they carry themselves out to the rest of the world. The center of culture disputably being Rio de Janeiro, and the economic capital being Sao Paulo. Most of the population lives within driving distance of the coasts, so there is, in a sense, a prevalent beach culture, especially for the people on the east side of the country. Not everybody in Brazil loves soccer. In fact, many places prefer basketball.
I think that is
I think
Rio,
so.
right?
Yeah, Rio is in Copacabana is in Rio, or maybe I'm wrong. But
I think that's, I don't know, like I'm a little bit ignorant, but to me
I
that look-
think so.
And skateboarding has actually been a huge thing that's been exploding over the past few years. And no, not everybody has been to a carnival. Oh, and another thing, there's currently a war going on in Brazil. It's been very brutal. It's been going on for decades, and it's getting quite intense right now. I'm talking about the cookie war. In Brazil, people will ridicule you if you pronounce the word for cookie differently from them, and especially it's a whole Rio versus Sao Paulo thing. People in Sao Paulo will call it bolacha, and the people in Rio will call it biscoito. This conflict has led to the violence and deaths, leading in the victimization of people caught in the crossfire, and you almost fell.
I have a suggestion. Just say, heat the cookie. Heat the cookie. Okay? Let's heat the cookie.
For it, didn't you? Now let's
He's a
talk about
funny
their
guy, by the way.
relationship.
Yeah, that's a nice video.
Now, Brazil kind of gets along with everyone, but he's kind of like that friend that ventures off and does whatever he wants while you wait in the hallway until he comes back from doing whatever he's doing. First off, pretty much all of their neighbor nations get along with them, although Argentina has a huge competitive hatred for Brazil when it comes to soccer. But all of that aside, they have good relations and trade policies. Then, just like I mentioned before,
It's just soccer, I mean.
Soccer, you know, we also need
Yeah, but it's because they had Pelé and Maradona. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
soccer, it's not everything.
it's the same. It's the same of white and black.
Yeah,
I mean.
it's not everything.
for the Angola video, they get along with other nations of the former Portuguese Empire like Angola, Mozambique, Sao Tome and Principe, Cabo Verde, and so on. They even get along with Portugal and have no bitterness towards the former colonization. Now, when it comes to the US, for centuries they've been good friends and have a deep history of trade and alliances. However, recently Brazil has been kind of diddle-doddling off making friends with other people that kind of give the US the old shifty eye. Then we have Venezuela and Cuba. Brazil has sided with the Venezuelan government more in the past few decades and has built a $1.5 billion port in Cuba. Then we have Iran. Recently, Brazil has been testing the waters on attempting to build ties with them, although they haven't really improved much recently. Nonetheless, Brazil is quite the popular guy. Not many people dislike Brazil, except for maybe the Brazilians in Brazil that may complain about their own country's administrative affairs, but that's a lesson you'll have to learn by talking to an actual Brazilian person, not me. Plus, we're almost out of time. In conclusion, Brazil is so much more than just the Amazon and soccer, and we didn't even scratch the surface of Brazil in this video. And to find out more, I recommend just talk to a Brazilian. Just remember which side of the
Yes,
cookie you're
but
on.
what type of cookies should we eat? That's the only thing I want to know now. People complain about the cookies, yes, how you name them, but what type of cookies? It's way more important, and also more important than that, I want those cookies. What are those cookies?
Yeah, but the video is still 30 seconds long. Maybe you will say that. But I don't
I'm
think so.
forgivable not giving links to cookies. I
Stay
want
tuned.
my cookies.
Brunei is coming up next.
Hey, John, please once again.
Cookies.
I want my cookies right now. That was a nice video. A little bit like.
But that's the question for the
this
people
video is
there.
already
He
5
wants
years-
the name of the
This
cookies.
video is 5 years old, and you know what? Where are my cookies? Where? That's very important to know. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for suggesting this video. It was a lot of fun to learn a little bit more about Brazil. Also, I got another suggestion. Perhaps we'll do another time. Another video, I think, was called "Don't Come to Brazil" or something like that. I haven't had the time to do it yet. If you want us to do it, we'll do it next time together. And please go check our songs. We did a cover together of Alice in
We
Chains.
did the Christmas song.
We did the Christmas song. You'll find it here somewhere. So show a little bit of love. We would appreciate it as well. We'll see you later. Cookies. I want still my cookies.